Change is actually a really difficult thing that we do as humans. Humans don't like to be uncomfortable. Humans don't like to do things that create discomfort. And change is that, right? In order to change, we have to move through discomfort. And so it's really hard. And it's maybe even something that we downplay as a collective, how hard it actually is. Or we want people around us to change, or we're frustrated with ourselves, or we feel shame that we're not changing, when maybe it's that we don't understand the change process, like what it actually takes to change, or even where you are in the change process. Because after years of doing work with clients, it can be easy for people to misjudge where they are in the change process, and then they're actually like fighting against themselves instead of working with the phase that they're in. So today we're going to go over the stages of change and break down what does it actually look like to change. The stages of change model by Prochaska and DiClemente is a really helpful model that explains what it looks like for us as humans to change. And when we know that, we can work with ourselves instead of against ourselves. So here are the different stages. So we have pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, maintenance, and relapse. And that is the cycle that we follow. It doesn't necessarily mean it's linear. We can hop around within this. But I want to go through the different stages and really hear yourself in it, like where you are trying to change. And then also pay attention to where you are trying to get other people to change. So whether you are someone who works with clients, whether you're noticing this come up within partnership where you're so frustrated because it feels like I want it more than them. This is a really helpful thing to look at, because when we are, again, whether it's client work that we're doing or it's in our relationship, no one else can change for somebody else, right? No one else can do the action and sit with the discomfort for someone else. So if someone is in a certain stage of change, we have to be next to them, alongside them in that stage of change. It doesn't actually work to be ahead of someone trying to drag them to that stage, and you'll see as we go. So welcome to Soul Footing Guidance. Here we go. So in pre-contemplation stage, this is a stage where I don't work with clients in this stage, and most people coming for any type of support don't come in this stage. Pre-contemplation stage is I don't have a problem. I don't need to change. I kind of think of it as like a get off my back. I don't want to. And that can be really hard when people are in that stage, especially again, if you're relationally with someone who is like, I don't want to. In that stage, us being next to them is, okay, they don't want to. Now, what do I want because they don't want to, right? Like, do I need to change something in myself or with my own life because the person I'm with doesn't want to change X, Y, and Z, right? And sometimes we're talking about big change and sometimes we're talking about little change, but either way, it follows these stages. And then we move into contemplation. So this is usually a stage, and this is where people come into needing support the most. So whether it's therapy, coaching, just any type of service where they're like, I want to make change in my life, a lot of people come into contemplation. So in contemplation stage, it's, I want to change, but I don't know how. Or I want to change, but I'm scared. Or I want to change, but sometimes I don't. But like I oscillate between wanting to and not wanting to. I don't stay stuck in just not wanting to. And in this stage, we need curiosity and we need exploration. This is also the stage where I often see people way ahead of the other person they're trying to work with. So if you are already trying to put action into place when this person is like, but I'm scared. I want to change, but I'm scared, right? Or like any type of blocking belief, it doesn't feel like it's possible. Like I want to so bad, but it doesn't feel possible. They are in contemplation. So no matter what type of action or no matter what type of preparation and plan you put into place, if the person themselves doesn't feel ready yet, you will feel frustrated trying to get someone else there. And contemplation needs to be honored because a big part of how we have to look at the change process is each person needs their own internal buy-in to make long-standing change. So it's not possible for someone else to want it more because that's not sustainable. It's not going to work. So in contemplation, if you're like, that's me, like I'm waffling, like I want it, but things are getting in the way, part of the work is regulating our nervous system enough to get curious, right? Like, can we have fear, but still be curious about the fear? Because if, as soon as you try to look at the fear, your nervous system spikes and you are like, I can't look at it, I avoid. That's where the work lies. If you're able to go, yeah, this is really scary, or I'm really afraid of this, or yeah, I really want to, but this is a block or this is a block, and we can be curious and exploring it, then we build internal motivation. We build internal buy-in. Because again, that's the only buy-in that matters is the person themselves. And sometimes when people come into work with like myself or just anyone who's like a coach or a therapist, that kind of thing, sometimes people move their contemplation really fast, right? Like they just needed little tweaks. And some people, they hang out there for a while and they need more curiosity. They need more exploration because they have to move through the challenges of the plan. And you can do it with someone, right? It's like curiosity and exploration questions, even. Like we're getting curious about this problem and we're getting curious about the barriers and we're getting curious about all the emotions that are coming up around it. And then once someone is like, okay, I feel ready to start making change on this thing, like I've moved through the fear, I've moved through the barriers, then we go into the next stage, which is preparation. So preparation is because that person has an internal change where they're like, I am ready to make this change. Preparation actually works a lot easier than when you get ahead of someone. Because in preparation, we're like, okay, based on what we learned in exploration, here's what I need to be part of my plan so I can actually make this change happen. Like if someone is, they figured out that the fear is, I'm afraid of being seen. I'm afraid of being visible. But their goal and the thing they want to change is making their business more visible, posting on social media, being vulnerable with the people they're trying to call in. That preparation is going to look like, okay, maybe part of the preparation is breathing exercises and nervous system regulation and deconditioning when those fears spike again. Or it's part of the plan might be like post it and hide your phone for 30 minutes just to give yourself a chance to not delete it, that kind of thing. So the plan is really person to person. It's very specific based on what we learned in contemplation. And in order to come up with a really good plan, a preparation, we need to have learned things from contemplation. That's why it's important that we don't just skip right through it. And then we take that plan and we move it into action. And in action, we're putting the plan into practice. And again, this is where we can maybe, depending on how good the plan was, we move into action. Let's say we're like, oh, but this was really hard, or that didn't actually work for me. Sometimes this is where we move back into preparation because we learned like, oh, that didn't work, so I need to make some tweaks to my plan. And then we can move right back into action again, where we're practicing putting the change into practice. And we do this for a while, right? Like we are actively practicing, we are actively trying to make the change for a while. And then eventually it turns into maintenance, where it's like, yeah, I've been doing that. It feels good. I don't have to think about it as much. I don't have to be as on myself about it. That's when we move into maintenance, where it just kind of starts to work on its own. But an important part of this stages of change model is relapse. And a lot of people get really hard on themselves about the relapse stage, but really the relapse stage is essential. It's basically saying, right, no matter what change we make, we are susceptible to going back on that change. So a lot of times this model is used in like substance abuse recovery, right? It's like, okay, we made a really good plan based on what we knew, and you put that plan into action, and then you were in maintenance for a while. But hey, you only planned for the really big, sad, intense moments of life. You didn't plan for the really beautiful spring day where everyone's drinking a beer on the patio and you just got a promotion. That's the part we didn't plan for, right? We planned for what's going to be hard. Maybe we didn't plan for the celebratory part. And so now you hit a new place where you're like, we relapse upward if we let it be that way. Because that can move us right back into contemplation, or it can move us right back into preparation, right? We can move back into the contemplation where it's like, oh, well, now I don't know if I want to change again. Like part of me wants to, part of me doesn't. Or we can move that back into preparation after a relapse where it's like, oh, shoot, okay, I didn't plan for the really good days. I didn't plan for the celebrations. Now I need a new plan. And then I put that new plan into practice and I can move right back into action. So it can be a really fast process when we relapse. Or it can be, okay, we have a bigger lesson to learn. We have to move back into the stages a little further. The biggest part about all of this is the taking the shame out of the process. This is how we as humans change. These are the stages that we go through. It's very normal that we go through these. And a lot of people, whether it be, upbringing, or whether it be our own being hard on ourselves, or the culture that we're a part of, or the collective that we're a part of, we might be extra hard on ourselves. And we might be in contemplation, but feeling like everyone expects us to be in action. So we pretend like we're in action, but really we're not. And behind closed doors, we're in contemplation. We are not changing the thing that people think we're changing. So I want to demystify the change process and normalize every single stage, because we go through all of them and we go through them at different speeds, and we actually get to decide when we know what they are. Like, let's say you've been in contemplation for a while, you're still making an active choice when you're aware of it to get curious, to have more exploration. Maybe it's, having more conversations with your coach or your therapist or your friends, and really getting curious and verbalizing what you're scared of, or looking at, okay, what are real barriers and what are perceived barriers? Because a lot of times those go in the same bucket for people, right? It's like, no, I can't do that because this thing is in the way. And sometimes that thing is in the way actually, and we need to learn how to navigate around it. And that has to be part of our preparation stage. Or it's a perceived barrier, and it's more of like a mindset that we need to shift, an internal barrier than an external one. And getting support in the change process is so helpful for us as humans, because, there are a lot of changes that we can do alone and a lot of changes that we don't need support around. But some of the bigger ones that really rock our nervous system or feel really big, right? Whether it's like life transitions or just things that are like, this is so new and I don't know how to do this. Support on these stages of change can be really helpful. And especially with someone who you feel really confident working with, someone you really trust, and someone who will be next to you in your stage of change. And you can look back in your life and you can see the things that you've changed. You can see the transitions you've made. You most likely went through these processes without even realizing it. And when we put it into more awareness, it just makes the change process so much more smooth and so much more thoughtful, because we're really able to hold our self and our inner child through these changes and regulate our nervous system as we go. So, as we're making the preparation and as we're moving into action, it feels so much more empowering. And like I was saying, this is something that can be really helpful to do with support and someone who knows what they're doing. And luckily, I know what I'm doing. And this is something that I feel really fortunate to be able to do with people and help people navigate change as a human, because it can feel really complicated when we're in it, but it doesn't have to be. And there are ways that we can really have our own back when we're trying to make these really big changes. So join me for one-on-one mentorship. I would love to have you, and walking through the stages of change and that being a part of this work is really important. And using human design in addition to the stages of change is really important, because there are ways that human design can help us get curious or help us put certain preparation or action into practice based on how we naturally are meant to operate. So it really fits within this model really smoothly and really nicely. And I'd love to have you. So the link will be in the description of this video, so you can go right to my website and book a consultation with me. The consultation is free. And then we can really get to what you're wanting to work on and how to navigate these changes that you're looking to make, because you don't have to do it alone. And you can also join me on TikTok and Instagram at Soul Footing Guidance, and I will see you next time. Bye, guys.